Hello, Red Nail Energy listeners. This is Mikhail, and I am actually coming at you live in person with my guest, which this is so fun. This is the first in-person full-on recording I've done, and we are in our beautiful hometown of Boise, Idaho, where we have access to Kit Studios. So shout out to Kit, which Morgan works for. I'd love to jump in quickly, and we'll kind of give our listeners a little brief overview of how we know each other, how we met, and then we will get into all of the stories that you have been withholding from me so that we can tell them live on air. So Morgan and I actually met on 11/11, which was very divine, and then our whole friendship has kind of continued to follow suit in just this like divine overlapping parallel universe life, sometimes in ways we love, sometimes in ways we haven't loved so much, where we give each other warnings like, by the way, you're going to go through a breakup in a week or two.
By the way, your heart will be shattered
By the way,
soon.
your heart will be in a blender, so I will come prepared with ice cream and tequila. But yeah, we met at a wellness event that was just, again, like very divine. We were both getting ready to start a challenge through a kind of like meditation platform that we both used, and the rest is history. We got ready we got together for coffee, and it was like, oh my gosh, am I you? Are you me? This is crazy. The amount of things that we just
lived parallel lives.
And yeah, it's been really fun. We've been great accountability buddies. We've gone through highs, lows, heartbreak, loss. Both of us have lost our dads. And so I think that's even something that's been kind of like a bonding thread for us to be able to talk through, you know, going through our first Father's Day as friends and like some of those things that you kind of really only know if you're part of the club that no one wants to be in. So I think that's been really great. And then I'd love for you just to give kind of a little intro about like what you do professionally, but also chat through Root and Rise because I mean, I guess I'll say this now, but there is a membership community coming that I'm so excited to share with all of you guys. And within that, I'm going to be collaborating with different creators to curate a really custom, incredible membership opportunity. And Morgan is going to be one of the featured creators. So tell us more.
I can't wait. Well, before we get into that, I do want to like go into how we met in a little bit more detail because like that day on 11/11 was just like so crazy because it wasn't just like, oh, we met each other and then the rest was history. And like, we were both doing this like manifestation platform thing. It was like, as a little bit of background, I'd moved back to Boise a year ago and I was at the time really calling in wellness community. I wanted people that were really aligned with me and like all of my passions and interests. And I wanted people that I could surround myself with that like truly made me feel like my best self and brought out those best qualities in me. And so part of that was like trying to be intentional about going to different events and things. And so I went to this 11/11 event and I will never forget. So we had done like the yoga and we had like done like some of these things. And then some people were sharing and you were sharing. And some of the language you were using was straight out of the To Be Magnetic manifestation course or like whatever membership
framework.
that we were both a part of.
Yeah.
And they were about to start a challenge. And I had been like searching for an accountability buddy in Boise because I wanted somebody that was in Boise that I could do these things with, that I could like meet up with and like could just be like so aligned and connected with through that process. And you started speaking and you were just like talking about like a rock bottom and coming out on the other side of it and how like you felt magnetic and like all of your language. I was like, oh my God, she sounds like she is in this membership. I need to go talk to her. And so I went up to you as you were about to get in the sauna and I was like, hi, I'm Morgan. And you were like, oh, hi, I'm Mikhail. And I was like, okay, I know you're about to get in the sauna, but I have to ask, are you doing To Be Magnetic and are you doing the challenge? Because the language you were using when you were like sharing your experience with the group was straight out of that. And you were like, oh my God, yes. And then we were chatting. We're like, yeah, let's be accountability buddies. Got your phone number. You went into the sauna and then like we didn't see each other again.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say the day before that, because I'd continued to hear through To Be Magnetic that they were coming up with this challenge. And I'm kind of like a perpetual self-help junkie. I always have some type of a challenge. I'm doing whatever. And I was in a space where I'm like, okay, enough is enough. I just need to integrate. I'm not going to do this challenge, even though I really want to. And then I journaled, if I am meant to do this challenge, I will know. And it will basically like slap me in the face. And I did that being like, it's not going to. And then here's this little girl that bebops over to me when I'm getting in the sauna and is like, do you want to be my accountability buddy for the challenge? And I'm like, what other sign could I need? And I was like, well, guess I'm doing it. So that was also just like such a crazy, like, you call it in, you ask for the universe, it will provide exactly what you need. And that was what I needed, is to do it. And we both kind of failed the challenge, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But
we succeeded. It just took us twice as long.
Twice as long, for sure.
But like, I remember leaving that day, and then you had texted me like 2 hours later, and you were like, your first text to me, you were like, what's so crazy about this is that I had asked the universe for a sign to determine if I should do this challenge or not. And like, there you were in my life. And it's like, so crazy that that was how we were brought together. It was like, I was like truly like manifesting and calling in you into my life. And then you were looking for a sign, and like, it totally just like pulled us together. And like, we were like magnets to each other. And then, you know, we'll uncover a lot more of this as we like do more of these. But yeah, like you said, like the more we like talked and got to know each other on our 3-hour coffee walk the next day, we're like, oh my God, we're wearing the same outfits. We're like, we have the same life experiences. We're in similar like positions with work. We want similar things. We have this like drive to be creative and fulfill these like bigger purposes and help people and create community and all of these things. It was like, oh my God, we literally are the same person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really cool to kind of see that reflected. I think a lot of the time our 3D is a pushed out reflection of ourselves and maybe where we're at. And it just so happened that in that space, we both were in alignment, calling in the right things. And for me, those types of moments are kind of what get me through hard times, when it feels like my 3D, my reality, what I'm seeing isn't quite reflecting the things that I would like to be calling in. And so when those moments happen, it's like, okay, all right, I got to just like, to use a TBM term, get that trust muscle, strengthen it up, believe that at the end of the day, the things that we're calling in are truly just ourselves reflected. And so it was a really cool experience to like sit down with you, get to know you better, and know there was a lot of aspects of our life that are very different, but the themes and the undertones and kind of where we were both at in like calling out our own bullshit, being like, we are not, like, we're done with some of these things, and how can we hold each other accountable in sort of changing the outcomes and the endings was really powerful, because it was just this like built-in accountability, but that felt really safe, because neither of us were on some soapbox like preaching at the other, or like way different where we couldn't relate. It was like, oh no, like, not only do I understand you, but like, I am you. So here's how I can like be an outsider going, I can maybe see this a little bit differently, because I'm not the one where my heart's attached to the situation, but I can have so much grace and compassion, because like, we are all one and the same, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like in so many conversations that we have through, like you mentioned, the highs and lows and like everything in between, so many of the things we say to each other, we're like, I'm telling you this as I'm telling this to myself.
Right.
You know, and it's like, oftentimes we're just like going through different experiences that are like mirroring back some of the same lessons. And it's like, even though we might not be in those situations anymore, it's like, we can still reflect on that more. We can still like get to know that and like get comfortable with some of those lessons that like will come up over and over and over again. And we like slowly learn a little bit more each time.
Yeah, and I will say, I've had this conversation with quite a few of my like really close inner circle girlfriends. If you don't have friends in your life that are willing to call you out on your bullshit, that are willing to like love you enough to expose some of your blind spots to you, love you enough to sit with you in those moments where maybe you have like reacted instead of responded, or you're not behaving in your kind of like highest self, or the way that the people that love you know you can. Find people in your life that you can trust to do so, and that you know really do want the best for you. I think that's the thing. Unfortunately, as women, we have this weird innate desire at times to like bask in the other person's struggles, or like misery loves company, or whatever it may be. But I think that when you know that someone wants what's best for you, but then they're also really willing to hold you accountable, because there are so many, I mean, I see it a lot in stereotypical male friendships. Like, nobody knows less than the guys that just golfed with their buddies. Like, what are they doing for work? I don't know. How's their relationship? I don't know. What do they literally, what is their name? I don't know.
Like, how are they doing? No clue.
No
like,
idea.
What?
Yeah, but they like golfed okay. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that like, and that is a whole other like beast to go into, but I think that as women, one of our superpowers is the ability to lovingly hold space for each other, and also keep each other accountable. And so I think at the end of the day, if you don't have people in your life that you can trust, or, you know, I would even say go to the people that you trust the most and ask them gently, what do you think my blind spots are? What are the areas, or what are the repeated patterns you see me kind of continuing in these cycles in as somebody that loves me and wants what's best for me? And how could I maybe make small changes in order to kind of change some of these outcomes, because we're only operating from our own vantage point, and the people that love us can often see things completely different, and maybe even from just like a zoomed out perspective than we're able to.
Yeah. So. The amount of times that like I've especially been in like a lot of emotionally charged or like triggering situations, and you're like, okay, like notice your energy right now. Like, whoa, you know, like you need to
take
like
a breath.
take some steps back. You need to like reclaim your energy. You need to come back to yourself, like whatever. Cause it's like, we just get so caught up in our own stuff and our own emotion and our own like zones that like we truly, like you said, like we're in our lane, like we can't see outside of our vantage point sometimes. And we need somebody to be like, okay, like your vibration is down here, and we need to like take some breaths and like get it back up to the spot, because like these behaviors are the things that you're like leaning into right now aren't serving you. And you've been such a great person to like help me see those parts of myself that like I couldn't see in those spots. Cause it's like hard when emotions are hard, they are overcoming or is that the right word? Overcoming? No, that's not the right word.
Overtaking? Bearing? Over under? Over.
They are.
I don't.
Oh, all consuming.
All encompassing.
Yeah.
And we are over it.
Yeah. But they like truly consume you at points.
Yeah.
And so like having those people that can like see you in those moments of being so like consumed by something and so blind to where you need to go and like where you need to like relax or lean into other behaviors is so important. And like, I feel like we're good at doing that with each other.
I think so too. And I think that a big, you know, conversation we've had a lot, but something that just, I'm sorry if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, because everyone has it, is this inner child that is what is often taking over and driving the ship in all of those times that we do feel like we're out of body, we are reactive, we are almost in that. For me, it feels like time is running out and things are spinning so fast, and I have to respond right this exact second. And it's like I'm not even in my body in those moments.
100%.
And I think that with that, it's like everyone has that, and it operates differently. For some people, it's complete withdraw and avoid. For other people, it is like sink your teeth in and go in as hard as you can. And I think that for me and for us, we've spoken so much about that, is like, how can we surround ourselves with people that love us as adults, but also have love and grace and compassion for that inner child, because we're not always going to behave perfectly. And if especially to our friends and the people we love the most, they're going to get the like ugliest, most reactive, most abrasive versions at times, but then to be received by a person that is like, I see you, I love you, I understand where this is coming from, maybe in this moment better than you do, because you're in this like spiraling state. How can we like take a deep breath, like you said, call our energy back in, reclaim our power, and get to a place where we can see things more clearly, but also like honor and love that inner child that is showing up to protect us.
Totally.
It's frustrating. It's always in these times where I'm like, really, little Mikhail, like for real, we really got to do this right now.
Yeah.
Like these times where I'm just like, I wish I could be my highest, best self. But being received by somebody in that moment safely is all we need for that little kid to be like, oh, we're good. We're safe. Like I can go color in the back room. Like we're fine, you know? But I think that it's like, especially relationally for me in intimate relationships, they're always going to be the most triggering and the biggest thing that brings that up. And so to have not often been received safely in those situations, my female friendships are what helped me realize it's possible.
Totally.
And that's how we heal. And that's how we then choose differently with romantic partners, or we respond differently with romantic partners. You know, it's like lifelong, but so important, I think, to like really lean into those safe spaces that we find, because it's where healing happens.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right, cool. We'll see you next week. Okay, so you've been gatekeeping a story that we even were together yesterday and we just kept like zipping our lip shut and you were just like taunting me with it.
I was like, I can't talk to you. I need to stop talking because I want to save this story because it was like such a profound experience.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so as you know, I mean both of us, like we're on this like perpetual like self-healing journey of like aiming to understand ourselves better, like aiming to understand our inner child and our core wounds and like trying to break down these limiting beliefs and this like, you know, all of this programming that we have believed that might be like leading us to people or things that aren't necessarily aligned with our most authentic selves. Holy moly, talk about TBM lingo.
Seriously,
I just
that
dropped
was a dictionary.
30 words all in one. But so I do a lot of work with like we do. And with To Be Magnetic, we do these like in-depth, deep imaginings, like long meditations and things to like work through all that. Also, this challenge, did you ever finish it? Did you stay on track like you wanted to?
I'm almost done.
Okay. I think I'm still on week 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's all right. You know what? We got to give ourselves grace sometimes. Sometimes we just got to live our life. We don't have time for all the self-help. We got to integrate it.
So funny. But yeah, so I do those. I go to therapy. I like journal every day. I like am so in the work, yet at the same time, like I'm so blind to something sometimes, you know? And it like, I also find, I told you about this a little bit yesterday, but like a lot of those things for me, I feel like my mind and just me as a person, I move so quickly and it's really hard for me to like really connect to those like inner child parts of me or like those wounded parts of me. And even in like a 30-minute meditation or an hour-long therapy session where like a lot of those therapy sessions, I'm doing a lot of like deep EMDR work where it's like talking about, you know, a memory or an experience that was informed by an early memory. And then in therapy, we kind of like go back to like, okay, let's go back to that memory. How did it feel? Where were you? What was happening? Where do you feel this in your body? And in those moments, even in 50 minutes, it's so hard for me to like truly connect with those parts of myself. Like, I feel like there have been a handful of those deep imaginings in To Be Magnetic that I can really connect and like blast off or, you know, like I like feel like I'm like truly connected to either an earlier part of me or like a higher consciousness or something. But a lot of times, like I'm really stuck in my conscious mind and I'm really stuck in the racing thoughts and the like, it's almost like I'm like trying so hard to figure it out or like I'm trying so hard to connect with it that I can't connect with it.
You can't like fully release and surrender to it. Instead, it's like cerebral. It's how can I think my way out of this and think my way healed. And it's unfortunately just not the way that it works.
100%.
Yeah.
And okay, so funny that you just said that word. Oh wait, where is my journal? So anyways, so a little bit more backstory. The last like 2.5 weeks, I was really sick. Just had like a horrible sinus infection, cough, you know, the whole deal. And for me, as somebody that's like moving so quickly all the time, it is painful to slow down. It is like painful to be locked in my house for a week. Like that is torture. Yet at the same time, always in those moments, and like literally I have you like in my ear being like, this is your time to slow down.
I'm like, it might not be what you want, but it might be what you need.
You're like, your body needs a break. Like you need to listen to this.
You're like, but I gave it a break for 30 minutes earlier. Isn't it fine? I should be healed.
No, like literally. And so that was really hard for me. And like there was truly a week from last Sunday, so I guess like a week and a half ago, that last Sunday for 7 days, I literally left the house twice. One was to go to the grocery store really quick, and then one was to go on like a 10-minute walk that by the end of it, I was exhausted. Like I was just like not a human and I was trying to work, whatever. I was really trying to like lean into, allow, to accept, to release, to surrender to that and like give my body the break and the rest that it needed. But I was losing my mind. And at the same time, I did know that it was like this opportunity for me to slow down and like be all of those things that you were telling me that I needed to be. You're like, this is your time to chill. And now that I'm feeling better, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be intentional about like where I'm spending my time, how I'm like going about my days. I'm trying to be less like in my masculine energy. I'm trying to be less like go, 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 get shit done all the time, be so productive, try to reach my protein goal, try to reach my step goal. Like that's how I operate normally in my life is like, I need to get 12,000 steps today. I need to get 160 grams of protein. I'm tracking all the things. I need to get all of these things done for work. Like everything is like so much control. And it's like so intense, like all the time. And that is like the way that I operate in my life. And as you know very well, and like even with like how much I travel and all the trips I go on, it's like, I can't slow down.
Right.
I cannot slow down. I can't release. I can't accept. I can't surrender. Like I just can't. And I'm working on it. I'm trying to, but it's really difficult for me. Anyways, lots of backstory to say that earlier this week, I had seen that there was a breathwork, a somatic breathwork and a sound bath event that I felt really called to go to. But initially I couldn't go to it because I had a recreational volleyball game that night. Wednesdays are my favorite day of the week because I normally have my volleyball games, but there was a storm this week and that got canceled. And so I was like, okay, great. I think I can go to this. And I went into the event, like just being like knowing that it was what I needed. And, you know, I get into the space, settle in, and at the beginning, Mariah on the Exhale Boise team, like she starts talking and, you know, giving the intro. And then she was like, okay, I want you to set an intention for this next 2 hours that you're going to go through. Think of the first word that comes to mind and write it down on the note card in front of you. Can you guess what my word was?
Surrender. Control. Surrender. I'm so proud of you. It's like control everything. That's my intention. Oh my gosh, amazing. Yes.
And it's like you would know that. You would guess that,
Yep.
you know, but it's like that was the first thing that came to my mind in that split second. And like I just knew it on such like a deep level that is what I was there to do. And it's so funny because every breathwork session, I feel like at the beginning, I'm like so in that conscious mind and I'm like, God, I'm never going to get to that part where I release or where I can connect to this like inner part or whatever.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, like in most of those cases, like
you'll finally break through.
Yeah. Through the somatic breath work, 'cause it stresses out your nervous system so much that like it allows you to, it actually like brings you out of that conscious mind and it does allow you to like access deeper parts of yourself.
You. Yeah. We like breathe so superficially even and often don't even think about breathing. I mean, that sounds really like metacognitive, but at the end of the day, I'm like, there are times where I will be so spinning out and I'll actually for a second be like, take a deep breath. And I'm like, I haven't thought about taking a breath. I can't remember when the last time was that I thought about taking a breath. And it's our greatest tool. It's always with us in every situation we're in. I perpetually can kind of like hover on that high frequency where there are times I'm like, just come back to your breath and do like a little bit of box breathing or a little bit of just intentional breathing. And it's amazing how much it can impact us. And then it's also amazing how quickly we forget that it's there or we fight it.
Right.
I've been in those somatic and I'm just like, this is stupid. And I'm just hyperventilating and everyone looks done. This is done. You know, like all of our brain thoughts are going to try to talk us out of it. And then finally we break through.
Totally.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. And so like, as I was like starting to breathe and going through that experience, I knew, and like something I've been working on in therapy is, really just like going back to a lot of my inner child wounds. There's like a handful of memories that I have from childhood that a lot of my childhood is like pretty blurry. Like I don't have a ton of memories from it. Unless I like see pictures and then like things get triggered back. But there's a handful of core memories, a lot of which involved my dad because we had like a very strained relationship. He was an alcoholic in my childhood. And that's what I lost him to was liver failure. And a lot of those core wounds and like inner child wounds come from like these like really vivid memories. Some of them I actually don't even know are real or not. Like I'm like, was that something that happened or am I imagining it? And so like going into this breathwork session, I was like, okay, I have this one memory that I know is connected to a lot of the ways that I show up in the world and a lot of like my biggest fears, specifically around like not feeling good enough, not feeling lovable, not feeling worthy, not feeling like I am good enough to have somebody that can like commit to loving me, and like finding somebody that will stay, somebody that will choose me. And so I tend to, in many relationships, I've tended to like cling to people that had a lot of like wounds, so that, you know, like alcoholics, addicts, like I was like drawn to a lot of those people in my dating
It's
history.
familiar. You're like, this is, I could do this when I was 4. I can do this when I'm 30. Like that's, you know, it's
Totally.
very interesting how much we will feel at home in situations that don't serve us. They didn't serve us, but it's all we know.
Right.
So you're like, oh, this is familiar. I can do this. I know how to wear all the hats and do the dance and help you and do these things. And it's just unfortunate because it's ingrained within us from childhood. We couldn't know better until we do know better. But then to change that feels so foreign and feels hard. And it's everyone's universal experience. Those childhood memories and wounds just look different depending on what your childhood was like. Yeah.
Right. 100%. And so it's like, I think back to how I've like shown up in relationships, like the people I've been drawn to, or like being attracted to people that might not be emotionally available, or they have these like other like addictions or things that are captivating them, just like it was with my dad in my childhood. And I've like known part of like what I, in that like core wound and that inner child work that I've been doing, has been this like 7-year-old vision of me, or version of me. And I have this memory of, I don't think I've told you about this, but I have this memory of me in my childhood home in Oregon before my parents had gotten divorced. At the time, like my dad was drinking a lot. Like he would come home drunk. He would like cause fights. I remember like him and my mom him screaming and like very like violent, you know, like atmospheres or whatever. And I have this one memory, and like I said, I don't know if it's real, but it's of me sitting at my childhood home. The front door, there was like a glass window, and it was dark. And it was of my dad in his truck driving away. And like that memory to me is like so symbolic of like him choosing alcohol over his family.
Everyone's gonna leave.
Choosing to leave. Everybody's gonna leave. Nobody is gonna love me. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And like so many of those memories have like influenced just everything. I mean, we can get into this either another time or later, but like has really influenced the way that I have struggled with comparison, with my relationship with food and fitness. Like it has taken me so long to like reprogram my brain to be like, okay, we actually are good enough, and we can utilize these things to like feel better about ourselves. We don't need to lean on nutrition and fitness to like tear ourselves down.
Right. We're
even
doing
more.
it because we love ourselves, not because we hate ourselves, or we're doing it because we love our bodies and our minds, and we're using it to enrich ourselves versus like a punishment or again a form of control. That is that, I mean, so synonymous with that deep abandonment wound is how can I control every single aspect of my life?
Yes.
And I think that's just so relatable to, you know, anyone listening, anyone that's experienced that, because it is this subconscious way to be chosen. If I'm choosing all of these things and if I'm controlling all of these things, then I'm able to like have less that is unpredictable in my life, less that I'm not sure exactly what the outcome is going to be. But really it creates this like little prison around ourselves, because any tiny little semblance that goes off track of the 1 gram of protein we don't get, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm a failure. Look, see, all my things are realized in this way.
Right.
Versus again, when we can actually like embody and encompass self-love wholly and realize like, it's okay if I have a day that I just don't even really think about macros. It's okay if I have a day that I just like enjoy my life. And what a thought, but it's so foreign from the alternative that it feels really difficult to break some of those patterns.
Yeah. And in this breathwork session, I knew I was like trying to like connect with that memory, with that part of myself. And just like literally yes to everything you just said. Like I And this was something I was able to like so deeply connect to in that moment. And it's weird because I think in a lot of these like healing modalities, a lot of people will be able to like talk to that part of themselves. And that part of myself like wasn't looking at me. It wasn't talking to me. I didn't even have necessarily this like clear vision. I have a picture of that memory of what it looks like. But I felt so deeply that like when I was in that breathwork session, I was like one with that part. And that like me and that one part were like hovering there together in that moment. And I was able to like feel the abandonment in that I was feeling in that moment of like watching my dad drive away. And then I was also able to see so clearly like, oh, and this is something I've known about for a while, is that like in those wounds, I've had this feeling of like feeling alone throughout my childhood, feeling like I'm the only person, feeling like I have to do everything alone. But one thing that really came up in that memory as I was like, you know, so close with it in that moment was like, I have to just everything you were just saying, like I have to control everything. Like I am in charge. If I don't have somebody to take care of me, I'm the one that needs to do it. I have to take the reins on literally everything in my life. And I'm the only person that can do that for me. So like there was no allowing, releasing, surrendering, or letting go in my childhood, at least in that memory. And I had this desire and this need to, or like this feeling of like, it's just me. Like, it's just me. So I have to be in control. And yeah, in that moment, I just like in the breath work, I was like, oh my God, like this is like, so I just felt it so deeply. Like I haven't felt that connected to like an earlier version of myself ever before. I was like, oh my God, I am one with that 7-year-old that's sitting at the front door. Like I felt it. And as like I went through it even further, I was like following myself around. Oh, I guess I did have like some of these like memories or like visions or things come up. And in all of them, like I was alone. Like I was walking around the yard picking flowers, and I was like doing all of these things. Everything was alone. And I was like, it was just so weird because I was like, I am there with this earlier version of myself. And at the same time, I was able to like connect with it so deeply and be there with it and like feel the emotions and feel that abandonment. And then also at the root of it, I was like, oh my God, this is why I feel like I have to be in my masculine energy all the time. This is why I have the go, go, go mentality. This is why I am in control of my morning walk, my meditation, my workout routine, my protein intake, like all of these things. This is why I can't slow down, because like I need to be in control of everything. Like I need to be in my masculine because there wasn't somebody in my life that was doing that for me. And I was just able to like see that, even though like I've kind of known elements of that before, I've never been able to connect with it so deeply, where like I felt those feelings in my entire body. And once I was able to like feel those, I was like bawling my eyes out in the breathwork session. I was like feeling those feelings so deeply. And at the end of this, so in all of my triggers, and I've probably told you about these before, but like especially with men, especially in intimate relationships, they bring out our biggest triggers. But all of my triggers happen in my chest, like all of them. And most of the time it'll be like this like really deep sinking feeling that I get in my chest, or like sinking down between my sternum, or like sometimes it'll feel like a fire and my heart races. But like all of my emotional trauma, or like my trauma responses or my triggers happen in my chest. And in this breathwork experience, I was like, after I'd like gone through that emotion of connecting with this like younger part of myself, feeling those feelings, recognizing like why I am the way that I am and why I have been able to like slow down or surrender or release or be in more of that feminine, I felt like I've never felt so light and empty in my chest. Like I have never felt energy move through my chest so clearly, so easily ever in my entire life, because I've always had this like heaviness,
a block.
a block. And I feel like it was truly the first time that I was like able to really unblock and work through all of those things. And going from the breath work that was like so emotional and intense,
confronting,
and very confronting. Like that's when I was with that younger part of myself. That's when I was like feeling and like recognizing that this was where all these things came from. And then going from that and then into this sound bath after, I was like, I had gotten at the end of the breath work. That's when I like started to feel that lightness, that airiness. Like I could like feel the energy moving through my chest again. And it was so crazy. Oh my God. Like my whole body was vibrating, and breath work, that's like a normal thing is like you feel like you're vibrating, but not only was I vibrating, like I was shooting out beams of light like from my entire body. Like I was like a ball of light. I felt like the sun, like truly just like glowing. And I had like felt this like energy moving. And then like, getting to the end of the breath work, I could not feel the floor beneath my body. Like I felt
you were
like
Chris Angel levitating in the middle of Las Vegas.
I was levitating. I was literally levitating. Like I felt like I was on a cloud a million miles up in the sky, and that I was the sun.
Yeah.
And it was truly the craziest physical, spiritual, like moment that I've ever had in my entire healing journey. And like the feelings I felt in my body, like I felt like I felt like I was truly connected to like every molecule in my body at one point, when I wasn't blinded by the light that was beaming out of my body. I was like feeling every atom in my body like make waves and like have all these like beautiful patterns and colors, and like it was just wild. Like I was on another planet, but like within myself. And like by the end of that, I mean, it was just like grounding back into my body in that like lightness, that airiness, the like feeling connected to every molecule, feeling my energy. Like I felt in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is my highest self. Like this is like what's on the other side of all of those like fears and limiting beliefs and that trauma that I've like stored with me and inside my chest specifically. I was like, this is what's on the other side. And like, this is how I can feel like I can feel this light and this good when I am really able to like get close to that part of myself that was so hurt and so wounded. And I can surrender. I can be, I can allow, I can release. And I also think, you know, having 2 hours to do that is really important for somebody like me that like, I just can't get there because I'm like so in control in those shorter amounts of time of like therapy and meditation and everything. But the 2 hours like really allowed me to do that. And it was just like so in line with like my intention. And like, it was just truly a life-changing experience.
It's amazing. It's really cool too to know that the two real modalities that got you there were breath and sound. So those are things that are accessible all the time.
Yes.
And it's also something where it's not like I dropped a bunch of acid and so I felt like I was on another planet, or I did something that was like an external, you know, a drug or a whatever it may be that is like not always accessible, and also maybe not your truest authentic self. I do think there are a lot of psychedelics that can help you access higher levels of consciousness, but at the end of the day, to know that it was your breath, which is always with you, we're always doing that. That's a very baseline, you know, need. But then also just the sound aspect that kind of does help integrate some of those things. But to know that that highest self is actually just always there, always in you, always accessible. Easier said than done, but in that moment, it's also so amazing to go, oh my gosh, all the things that I might have been worried about 2 hours ago are gone. Like, I'm not concerned that my friends are in these beautiful relationships that I so desire and envy. I'm happy for them in that. I'm not concerned with the fact that maybe this career path that I'm on right now isn't exactly where I want it to be, because I know that I have access to get it to wherever I want it to be. Like, all of these things that are kind of in our peripheral and and surrounding us at all times, it's noise. It's just this noise that wants to distract us and wants to clutter our ability to access that highest self. When we're able to quiet that, and when we're able to kind of like find ways to penetrate through it and then get a little bit higher and be above it, all that is there is like wholeness, love, light, healed, and not healed as though we've forgotten about where we came from, healed as though we are able to sit on the porch with that little girl and be like, oh, we're good. Like, we've got this. You know, it's like such a different version of it versus like close the door on it and we're ascending and we've forgotten where we came from. It's like, no, we are bringing all of that with us, and all those versions of ourselves are necessary to reach that highest point. You know, we wouldn't be there without some of those lows.
Yeah. Well, 100%. Like that masculine energy that I've carried with me since my childhood, it has served me. I mean, it got me through my childhood. Like, I think I am the person that I am today because of what I went through and my ability to get myself through it, my ability to process my feelings on my own, my ability to like emotionally support myself primarily. Like as a child, I remember like not really emotionally deeply connecting with a lot of like family or friends around me. And I remember like getting myself through those hard times and those hard things. And so it's like, it served its purpose. And at the same time, I can accept it and I can thank that part of me, and I can like be proud of getting to this point, and also recognize that like now I need to like really call in some of these other energies and these other qualities to get myself to the next level, to unlock those things that I'm manifesting and calling in, because like I don't want to be in my masculine energy all the time. And that's even like, as I look to like, you know, the relationships that I want to be in, particularly like in finding a partner, like I don't want to be in my masculine in that relationship. I want to be able to be in my feminine and have a partner that is in their masculine and that is like making things happen and that is showing up for me, that is like choosing me, that is kind of filling that void that I didn't have, or I wasn't able to like believe in throughout my entire childhood. And if I want somebody that is going to take control and that is going to be the leader in some ways, I need to step back into my feminine, and I need to allow, release, surrender. I need to let go, and I need to like, even in like my day-to-day life of, and this is something you're really good at. Like, I feel like you have worked so hard of like cultivating that feminine and being in this like state of flow when it comes to like your routine and food and fitness and even just like the things that you're called to. I feel like you've been so intentional about that, and like you're in such a good place, and I need to like, you've been such an expander for me in that way, and in so many ways too. But like, I need to do more of that, of like, yes, I still can be in my masculine in some ways. Like that does serve me in certain ways with my life and my side hustle and all of these things. And at the same time, I need to like slow down. I need to be, especially if I want to call in that type of partner, so that like we can both have a nice balance of those two energies. And like, I don't need to control so much. I can just like allow things to be as they are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So thank you for saying that. And it's still a struggle. It's still something that I remember, this was years ago, but I had somebody that I didn't even know on Instagram reach out to me and said, when I'm having these hard moments, I ask myself, you know, what would Mikhail do? You have it figured out. And as kind and sweet and amazing that was, I felt irresponsible because I thought to myself, I clearly, in some capacity, I mean, Instagram's a highlight reel, so I'm probably not going to show up bawling on the bathroom floor, but there's something I've done that has maybe given people this false sense of me having so much figured out. And like, what would Mikhail do? Mikhail would probably throw a tantrum and be a brat for a few minutes and then come back and apologize and realize that she wished she would have done things differently. Like, Mikhail is still an imperfect being that, you know, in that way. Yeah. But I will also speak to the fact that you're so right. So much of my life for a really long time was do, force, be, which is that masculine side. It's doing versus receiving. And so one of the biggest things I ask myself now whenever something pops up in my life that feels a little bit forced, or like I decided I was going to get up at 5 a.m. and I was going to do the spin workout and I was going to sauna. And I'll ask myself what would feel the best right now? Like what would feel really good? And a lot of times it's hard because it goes against this like crazy productivity stacking and do a million things at once. But especially since I've left the corporate world and I've given myself permission to ask myself what would feel good, there are mornings that I'm like, it would feel really good to just have my cup of coffee on the patio and not work out until 4 o'clock this afternoon and let myself have a slow morning and do these other things differently. And it's everything in me digs her claws in and resists that and is like, but then you're not worth anything because you're not doing 10 things before 9 a.m. and you're not doing. But I think that sometimes those patterns and habits that were from a place of survival served us very young, and we just carried them with us as this like rite of passage without realizing like you can put it down.
Totally.
You can put it down whenever you want to put it down.
Yeah.
And then it feels really, really good to ask yourself that. Like today felt good. It might not have looked as productive on my journal planner, but like it felt really good. And when we can get back into that space of feeling, so many of our decisions come from a place of feeling, and neither of us are at risk of like just becoming couch potato pieces of shit that don't do anything. So that's the other thing is I think that like some people really need to operate from more of a lens of set the structure, do the things, make commitments to yourself, make a promise to yourself and don't break it. For me, there are times I make a promise to myself that is like, you have to get this workout in. And a friend will text me that I haven't seen for a while and they want to get coffee or go grab happy hour. And it's like, give yourself permission to break the promise to yourself to go do the thing that feels really good and connects you with the world. Because if I died tomorrow, I'd be so much happier that I spent time connecting with somebody and they're not going to put on my tombstone, she broke her personal best on the Peloton. Like that's not what's going to serve me, you know? So I think that, you know, there's so much to that is like unpatterning and unprogramming and then reprogramming, but simultaneously it's like a dance that doesn't ever end. Like I don't think that we get there and we just wake up one day and we've figured it all out, which is the beauty of the human experience, and also at times really, really frustrating because every single day we're invited back to these patterns that are ingrained in our DNA for survival. But like we don't have to survive anymore. We get to live. It's not about that. And I guess my question too, before we kind of move forward from your sound bath experience, is if you now, as Morgan, as an adult, dropped into that porch and sat down with that 7-year-old, like what would you say to her now?
And this is like what I was saying to myself in that, because I remember at one point being in that like moment, and like I said, my 7-year-old self wasn't like looking at me and talking with me like some people have that experience. But I was my adult self now was like, I had my hand on the back of my 7-year-old self, and I was telling her like, you are safe, you are loved, you are worthy, you are good enough, you can, like you were kind of saying, of like, you can like put down that weight of trying to feel like you need to be in control all the time, and that people will come into your life and they will love you and they will choose you and they will choose to stay, and you don't need to cling or chase or claw at the things or the people that aren't meant for you. And like the things that are will stay, and the things that are meant for you will also find you, and like you're good. Like you can sit back, you can relax, and like know that it will be okay, and you will be okay, and you will be safe.
Yeah, and I think operating from that and integrating that 7-year-old self with you now is so amazing, because in those moments where that spiral starts to happen and that spinning out and that kind of like, I need to make things happen yesterday, to slow down and say that like, we're safe. Everything that is meant for us is going to find us. It can't miss us. And what would it feel like to just hold things a little bit more loosely? And yeah, that means that things are going to flutter away.
Yeah.
But it feels so good to not be clenching and clawing at these things that aren't meant to be in our hands, and free up space for so many other things that are going to flutter in inevitably. And, you know, you hear about that all the time. The person that held on to the decade-long relationship that from day one there were reservations and whatever, and that like the next day the things that fluttered into their life, the things they reconnected with, the hobbies that they haven't been doing, the versions of themselves that were just put away in this little box because so much focus went onto this thing that was exhaustive and requiring of so much energy. And it's just remarkable what finds us when we create space for it, and the freedom and release that comes from allowing things that aren't meant to be in our orbit any longer to just flutter away. And that's a little oversimplified. It's painful. It's hard. It's often the opposite of what we've been doing for so long. So it feels really foreign, but it's such a gift to allow the things that are meant to be. And then also the minute that we start letting go of some of the things that are kind of weighing us down, we ascend so much more quickly. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in this timeline or this 3D or this version of reality that we look around and it's like, where's all this been? You know, and it's been there. It's just been, we've been choosing to be kind of at this lower vibrational state that isn't allowing us to access and to connect with those things. And it's really a gift. I think that a lot of people are so scared to connect with those kind of more shadow aspects of ourselves because it feels like it's going to be really scary. And it is confronting for sure, because it's like seeing former versions of ourselves that maybe we've never even allowed to come into focus. But similar to the experience of the breath work and the sound bath, I had done a womb clearing session with Capricia Richards, who is a feminine energy and embodiment expert. I'd had her on the podcast recently, and I was so scared before that session because I had just decided my womb was filled with like black tar and demons and monsters, and I was going to get into it and be like, oh, this is why I'm broken, and this is why it's just like this really dark place where I'm like, there is not enough, you know, what Lysol in the world to clean out this space, whatever. And I remember, you know, it took a little while, as you said, to kind of drop in, to really connect. It was my brain at first was like kind of trying to come up with like colors and sights and things, and I was really trying to force it. And being witnessed in that, I think, is a really important experience too, where having somebody that is an expert to walk you through it and to really like push you to your edge, and like not in a scary way that they just like shove you off the cliff, but in the way of like, you're so close, like let yourself go there. And I was so shocked because when I finally got into this womb space, it was like golden light and like this place that is going to bear life and is going to bring me the next level of the greatest joy of being a mother, and like all these things that for years and years and years, I'm like, I'm so scared to know what's in there. And like for you, I don't know this little girl. Like she's not me. I'm not her. Like she's off doing her own thing, picking flowers alone. And like, I need to leave her to her own devices. And so then to be in that space that I'm like, what was I so scared of? But also, this is beautiful. Like this space is beautiful and so deserving and worthy of like my pause to connect to. And as you said, it was like maybe for you, it was this heart chakra that's been blocked. And so you suddenly feel it's not like something actually happened to unblock it. It's that you allowed energy to flow through it, where before it was protective to be like, nope, everything scary is held here. And so we're just going to block it off. And it's energetics. It's not like you have to actually go in there with a chisel and get rid of anything. It's that you allow. And so for me, in this kind of like root or, you know, like a womb, a sacral, a solar, wherever that like chakra was for me that was blocked in that womb space, it was just the allowance of energy to start transferring through. And same thing, I was like, man, I could like float to the moon if I wanted right now, because I've held it. And it's something I'll notice in myself in conversations, like a tightness in my belly, and I'll just sometimes let go. And I'm like, whoa, how long has that been just like clenched, you know? And I think that it's this space in which we have access for so much power, you know, women being able to bear a child, to grow life, to like create a human being within our own being is something that I'm so desiring of, and yet have been so disconnected from in ways. And then have just said like, maybe that's just not for me. It's not meant for my path. So when we have access to those areas, it's like, no. You are able to breathe life and light and love into all of these areas, and yet you're just missing the point because you're pouring all of these buckets of love into everyone around you, and like tossing it on people that are trying to run away. Like, will you come back? Will you come back? And yet we have these aspects that we can access within us at all times that are just like so amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to create spaces and containers for that connection, because the biggest gift it gives us is pausing to give ourselves that love first before trying to go out and seek it anywhere in the outside world.
Totally.
You know, in any capacity.
Yeah. And just having that understanding of why you are the way that you are and why you're doing specific things. Like when you do that work, when you look inward, when you allow yourself to connect with those like parts of you, those memories, even if you think they might be scary, they might be scary. They might be sad. They might be hard. But on the other side of it is more acceptance, more understanding. And that those senses of acceptance and understanding allow you to change your behavior, change the pattern, and like create a different narrative and a different future.
Yeah.
And I truly don't think that we can be our best, happiest, healthiest selves. I truly don't think we can call in the best, happiest, healthiest relationships unless we have an understanding of all of those parts of us or those blocks or those memories or whatever it is that we're storing and that we're running away from. I don't think we'll get all of those things that we really want out of this life. And so, yeah, for anybody listening of like, you're afraid to look inward, you're afraid to do the work, you don't want to do the meditation, do the sound bath, you don't want to journal. Like, I challenge you, like, face those things. The more you can get close to them, comfort them, accept them, get to know them, the more you'll see, just like you and I both have through these experiences, that like there's so much more beauty, lightness, freedom on the other side of it. Like, you truly feel like, I would love to hear more about how you felt after the womb clearing experience. But after my experience of that, like, sound bath and breath work, the last few days, I'm like, I am a new person. I'm also more blonde now, which helps. It's like half the blonde hair and then a half like.
Am I a goddess or am I just tan? Both.
Literally both. Half the blondness, half the healing work. But like, like I feel free, lighter. I feel like everything's just like falling into place. I feel like I'm able to like show up to work, show up to like things with friends. I'm just like showing up in a better version of myself. Yeah. And things are less forced. I'm like truly authentically me. And yeah, I want to hear like, how did you feel after your womb clearing?
Yeah, so similar and so like proud of who I am, of my womb space, of my heart, of these things that I think when we are empathetic and caring and compassionate and have found ourselves in this space again where like we just want to be chosen, and maybe I'm choosing a partner that like doesn't ever choose anyone, so I'm like, if he chooses me, that means I'm like really, really worthy. And it's just like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Life is too short for me to be confused and to wonder if you like me and to wonder, you know. So I think that at the end of those moments, this giant release happens, and then this really, really deep feeling of wholeness happens. Yes. And so then when you're operating from a space of wholeness, it's like, I don't need these dark little shadowy spaces of my heart to be filled up because I've breathed so much light into them. They're not dark and shadowy anymore. Yeah. And so you will add value to my life, and you will add light and add things I can be curious about and learn about and all these different things. But I'm not seeking and reaching and hoping for like the missing puzzle piece that's going to fill all these areas of my life that since I was 4 years old have felt like they've been a void. Yeah. And so I think that definitely a wholeness and a release, and it's such a different feeling when it's within our bodies and not often even able to be put into words, where again, like talk therapy is such a great segue and gateway and still a good maintenance aspect of maybe accessing some areas of our life that then we can go deeper with breath work and with some of the more somatic healing. But I think that kind of coming up with rituals of release in whatever that may look like. Another one that I'd love to suggest for listeners that I just did and we were speaking about from the full moon, I will do on certain full moons, but I will also just do when there's times where I'm ruminating a lot over something, a mistake I made, something that felt like a failure to me, something that maybe I wish I could just do the one thing I could go back in time and change this one outcome. I will sit down on the ground or wherever is comfortable, and I'll put 2 pieces of computer paper in front of me. And the left-hand side, it is all about what my life is going to feel like once this thing has been released. And so it's operating from a space of feeling, where often when we're in our masculine, it's like, I will read 3 chapters of a book a day. I will work out 6 times a day, or 6 times a week, maybe 6 times a day if you're really going through a hard breakup. I will whatever. Instead, I'm like, I feel like abundance is surrounding me. I feel like I walk with my head held high. I feel so much love in so many ways within my life, not only romantically and intimately, but I feel like I'm accessing deeper levels of love within the people around me. Like, I feel so happy to wake up in this life every day. All of these things that I'm calling in a feeling, and what it's going to feel like. And then on the right-hand side of paper, it is an unfiltered, no holds barred, the most unapologetic list of the things I'm letting go of in the most granular way. And so it's not just, again, accessing like the one thing. It is like, I am going to say it like so specifically and really commit to myself that I'm letting go of this. The most recent time that I did it, my idea then was to burn the sheet on the right. And I got a big glass bowl that I put a little bit of water in, and I'm like, this is foolproof. It's going to be fine. And I lit the side of the piece of paper, and it was so beautiful to start to watch it burn. But I will tell you, that computer sheet of paper caught fire. A huge flame came above it, and I was like, fuck. I'm walking across my kitchen literally with like a bowl of fire in my hands. And it was kind of symbolic too, because I'm like, I could let this like actually burn my house down. Like, it could take over everything in this way. Or I put it in the sink and I turned water on it, and it like singed and charred and turned into just like black dust. And it was like very crazy. And I like took a couple deep breaths, because I'm like, I just almost lost everything. And then sat there and just watched it and was like, I am committing right now to actually let this go, to actually forgive myself. We're not going there anymore. Of course, the thoughts are still going to come, but what I do every time that pops up is like, oh, we already let that go. And I talk to it as though it's done. It's not like I'm still struggling with. It's like, oh, whoops, that thought fluttered in. Like, I let that go. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that then even after that, I took a bath, and I really just like cleansed and had a really good night of sleep. And it was so crazy the next morning to wake up and just be like, oh, I'm lighter. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. And not to say that I won't have to do that 1,000 more times in my life, because we aren't ever just like, again, done.
Yeah.
But having those types of rituals that like you said, connect with some of those parts that we have been running from and scared of for a long time, seeing what comes up. There might be a time you sit down and your list on the right of things you want to let go of is 1. And then there's another time it's 100, and it just is ebbing and flowing with where we're at in our life. But giving ourselves space to like write those things down that hurt and that ache and that we're not proud of and that make us human, choosing to release them, and then walking into the world a little bit lighter is something that I think everyone could benefit from doing, once a month or whenever those things come up.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I did a similar, I was just looking in my journal of like, I know that I journaled on the full moon and like did some releasing and letting go of things. And that's good advice to like get really specific. My things were like, let's actually read what I wrote. I said I was letting go of, I think they were a little bit more general, but a lot of the things that like, a lot of the things that I kind of touched on in my breathwork experience, I am releasing and letting go of the things that don't serve me, unworthiness, feelings toward my ex, doubt that I'll find exactly what I'm looking for, feelings of being unlovable, or feelings or fears of being like not chosen. And yeah, I think like recognizing those things is like so important, and like let them go, confront them, and then like bye. They're not serving us.
Absolutely. And I really don't think we can access the light version of ourselves if we do not first get to know the dark version. And so often dark shadow work, all these things, it kind of has like a scary monster under the bed connotation to it. But if we think about the fact that we are worthy of all things good in the world, and we are light beings, and we have so much to offer, we're really only helping that light shine brighter by getting into those like kind of nitty-gritty spaces of our heart and our mind that are a little dusty and are a little shadowy, and just getting to know them a little bit better. And when we think about it the way we think about the people we love the most in our lives, we don't bat an eyelash at the times that they're a little reactive or not at their best. In fact, it's an honor to witness people when they show up and they're like, man, I am not my best self today. And for me to be able to be someone that is trusted in that moment where somebody sends me the voice note or gives me the phone call or shows up on my doorstep and is like, can you still love me like this? Greatest honor in the world. But when we apply it to ourselves, I'm like, no one could love me like this, you know? And so it's so interesting because I think it's just, again, a really beautiful connected part of the human experience to witness others and then really challenge ourselves to let ourselves be witnessed as well. And that's how we heal those things. It comes up, someone sees it, they still love us. We go get froyo, we move on with our, and we're like, oh, that wasn't so scary. Like it's possible. And then the sharp edges of that darkness get a little softer and we're able to speak to them a little bit different, or pretty quickly after say like, whew, that was not my best self that just showed up. And I'm sorry for that. And again, what a gift to our friends, to our coworkers, to our future children, to the people in our lives, when we can call ourselves out and apologize and be imperfect and give them permission to do the same. It's like, I don't want to live in a world where we're just walking around with our masks and trying to be perfect and trying to only show the light sides of ourselves. Like, the light doesn't exist without the dark sides. We wouldn't know what the light was if we didn't have the dark. And I think sometimes the darker the shadows, the brighter the light that then shines once you are able to expose and start to heal them.
Yeah. And I also think, like, oh God, what was I going to say? Oh no, I lost it.
It'll come back. Always does. Always does.
Oh, it was going to be so good.
Oh.
I thought it was going to be good.
Witnessing each other, being able to show up, call ourselves out, respond.
Oh God.
Access the dark. Froyo.
It was definitely the froyo. It was about froyo. No, well, one thing I was going to say was like, this was it. Is like, we get to determine the meaning that we give to either the darker parts of ourselves or how we maybe like show up one day that wasn't in our, maybe when we were feeling like our best self. Like, we get to determine the meaning that we give to those moments, give to those memories. We get to determine what lessons we take from them and ultimately how we move forward. And I also think that's such like an important part of like all of this is like, we are in control. Like, we have the autonomy, like we have the choice, we have the power, and we can give ourselves the same grace and compassion that we give our friends and our family members when they mess up or when they react to something the wrong way. Like, we can support ourselves in the same way that we support the people around us. And I think that healing work teaches you that. Like, the more you do it, the easier it is to be like, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm good. Like, that wasn't my best, but it's okay. And I forgive myself and I'm going to move forward. And we're good. And like, that mess up or the way that I reacted or the way that I like, handled something differently than I would have liked to, like, I can accept it and I can move forward and like continue on my path of trying to do my best. And all of that gets easier the more you do it and the more you like work through all these things. And but I mean, like you said, it's not a destination. It's always a work in progress.
100%. I saw something the other day that was like, exactly as you said, kind of giving meaning to the situations in our life. It was like, this can either be the hardest, most difficult thing you've ever gone through or the next thing that you're just figuring out. And we give meaning to that. And there are people that you look at and it's like, how have they handled that with such grace? Or how have they been able to, say it in this way of like, oh, it's fine though. And like, there's something better ahead or whatever. It was a blessing in disguise so quickly and so early on. And it's just perspective. Like, we all have the ability to do that. And not to downplay when you're going through a really big loss or a death or a relationship ending or whatever it may be. I don't think it's looking at it as like flippant and just like, oh, it's fine, we'll just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's more so though the perspective of, I've thus far made it through every single thing I've been handed. Looking back, every single really, really hard thing I've been handed has served me in some way or another. I wouldn't change them. Of course, both of us would want our dads back. Of course, both of us would want different endings to things that maybe happened in some type of a way. It's not saying, but knowing now what I know and the lessons I've learned from it, I wouldn't change the way I navigated, learned from it, built resilience, grew from it, all of those things. And so it's funny because, again, we're just like these cute little silly beings that every time we face something new, we now suddenly decide this is the thing that's going to break us and we can't get through. And yet our track records are pretty good so far.
Yeah.
And it's like we've done the things, we figured it out, we've gone through it, we've let ourselves feel the feelings, which is the most important part. The only way through is through, and to really allow it to bring us whatever feeling and lesson we need. But then to your point, to say like, I get to decide if this is the thing that breaks me and this is the thing I ruminate on and this is the thing that defines me, and now I'm going to be known as the girl who blank, or if you rise beyond that and it's part of your story and it's a chapter but it's not the whole thing, and then you get to go to the next page and you get to decide how you're going to show up for the next story that's being written. And I think it really is a gift to have that type of a perspective and to be able to pause and look at things with grace for ourselves and for those around us, and just again say, this is the next challenge that's been put on my little game of life that I am trying to figure out, and I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
So yeah, well, we talked about none of the things that I said we were going to talk about at the beginning, but that just means we get to have you back on. Plus I do really want to do a conversation that is really, surrounding Root and Rise and explaining the offering that you're going to have for our Red Nail Energy community, but also just how much wholeness and fulfillment that has brought you. So listeners, stay tuned for that. Please check out Root and Rise. Go ahead and tell listeners how they can connect with you and find you now. And then, of course, in the future, we'll have you back on and we'll deep dive into everything else as well.
Exactly. Yeah. You can find me. It's really frustrating. I didn't get the handle I wanted on Instagram. @_Root and Rise is my Instagram. And that's where I'm like most active. rootandrise.co. If you want to check out my website, it's not the best, but I do have like some of my free offerings on there. I have a membership that you can join if you're looking for a way to create a healthy, sustainable lifestyle that you can actually keep. So message me, DM me, connect with me. I'm here to help everybody and live our happiest, healthiest, best lives, feeling like our most authentic selves.
Snaps for that. Absolutely. And yes, we will definitely have you back on. I'm excited to kind of dive in a little bit deeper, but beyond that, I'm just so appreciative of you for being willing to share your heart, share your vulnerability. If I have learned one thing through this journey with Red Nail Energy, it is that we are all so much more similar than we are different. And the difference is the people that are brave enough just to speak aloud the things that aren't always the prettiest things to speak aloud, and to say the things that are, maybe not the highlight reel that everyone else is showing, but these conversations are what matter, and these conversations are what help us feel even 1% less alone in the world, or give somebody listening that little bit of extra oomph or courage to try again tomorrow, or to do the thing that they've been scared to do. And so I think that the fulfillment that I receive in having these conversations is more than I could ever ask for. And then to know that it reaches people that are also in need of that, and that are in our tiny little army ready to just take on the world with us, is a really beautiful thing. So I really appreciate that, and I am so excited to have you back on.
I can't wait till the next time. This was so fun. Let's do it again.
All right, sounds good. We'll catch you next week, Red Nail Energy listeners. And as always, you are not alone. You are so loved. And you know what? Choose your damn self today. That's all. The
Choose
end.
yourself.
Louder for the people in the back.
What did we do? We did it! How long was that? An hour and 15 minutes?
Amazing.